Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I'm Bolton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the Duality of Man. So, that 2 week deadline is really looming large, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the election is, only 2 weeks away, and it honestly really feels like the Kamala campaign, as time goes on, just gets more desperate. You would, expect a major political party to, have a, more solid foundation for their base, but now it still seems like she's still trying to convince people to like her, which is
Well,
bad when you're this close to the election.
yeah, and this is the thing, and this has always been my issue with Kamala. As everyone knows, I'm kind of the token lefty on this channel, and as such, I am relatively in touch with the Democratic base, the actual grassroots of the Democrats. And no one wanted Kamala. They didn't want her as VP. They didn't want her as a candidate. She peaked at 15% in the 2020 race for the candidacy, and that 15% peak was reduced by a factor of 5 by the great Tulsi Gabbarding. So, I,
I gotta say, what I was watching the Democrat primary back in 2019, 2020, and I gotta say, I honestly thought Biden would have picked Tulsi because she was genuinely the better candidate for VP. Because one, she's a lot more intelligent and articulate, Kamala, and has a better record, especially with her being a service member. And two, if Biden's brain finally broke for the last time, as it has now, I
yeah.
feel like Tosi would be someone that we could actually trust enough to, steer the ship. But nobody wants Kamala to be at the helm.
Well, this is why Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang were my second and third choices for candidates in 2019 and 2020. And honestly, I would have preferred a world where the Democrats ran someone that would actually make the grassroots of their party happy, because this whole we don't care what our base thinks and we have active contempt for our base from the party that rants and raves absolute hysterionic about the threat to democracy is frankly one of the most surreal things I've ever experienced. Although I will say that I do love that the election this particular year is going to be on the 5th of November, because V for Vendetta mood intensifies there. And that is some serious meme magic, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to do a stream that day?
Yeah, why not? Election coverage, like all the other sufficient YouTubers.
Yeah. But it being on the 5th of November is very symbolic. But I gotta say, it has been interesting to watch the media flip flop because first they were saying, "Oh, Biden's fine," and then after the debate, when it could no longer be ignored that his brain broke, they all tried to push him out. And I've actually seen an interview recently where Kamala Harris is confronted about the whole Biden being kicked off of the ticket thing, and like she refused to acknowledge that Biden was forced out. She kept saying, "Oh, oh, he just stepped down. It was the right thing to do, but he's perfectly fine. He's in terrific shape. He's mentally fit, strong." And I'm like,
Well, if
you are
if
making
one of
yourself
these is
worse by
true, the other one is false. God damn it!
you're like she's making herself look so much worse by continuing to deny reality regarding Biden's performance
it's
because
the it's the only maneuver that she and frankly most of the machinery of both parties, because let's be real here, there's a certain percentage of Republicans who are the Rhino never Trumper Republicans who just want establishment order Overton window back, and it's all a clusterfuck within a clusterfuck within a gerontocracy, because even if there was no establishment inertia, which there definitely is, you'd still run into the issue of most of the people currently in positions of power and authority have not been compos mentis for the last 10 years by virtue of being mid octogenarians to late octogenarians at this point. Like the oldest baby boomer is 78 as of this year. So anyone older than 78 is not a boomer even. They are silent gen. And yet those people, the people who are older than the baby boomers, full stop, are the ones who are not just the majority of politicians, but they are the politicians with the most clout, influence, power, and machinery behind them for some reason. No wonder they're out of touch and completely losing the plot because they keep trying to force the post-war consensus up and up and up, and all it's doing is making it very clear that the post-war consensus, along with the people who founded it, need to step the fuck aside and let the new paradigm take over, for God's sake.
A couple of interesting side effects, though, regarding this is that because Biden's brain is you know no longer working the way it should, and because the Democrat establishment and the media's constant refusal to explain why they didn't acknowledge this earlier and 25th Amendment is outside of the presidency, you're getting to see a lot of people wake up and no longer trust the system, which is honestly really good because you shouldn't trust the system. It's untrustworthy.
To be fair, it probably should have happened a long ass time ago because the writing has been on every wall we've turned to for the last 8 years or so.
True, true, but at least it's happening now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so better late than never, as they say. But welcome to the party, everyone. Population, most of the country.
Yeah, and I gotta say, one aspect of this that I'm really happy about is that a lot of black men are starting to reject Kamala Harris because she's just awful and she's trying to play off race politics, and they're just not buying for it because they have greater concerns in their lives, like trying to feed their families, if they have business, trying to operate their business, or if they're just trying to look for opportunities. It's good. It's very difficult with the state of the nation that the Democrats and Biden Harris administration have created, and I'm so happy that so many of them have woken up to this fact and are now taking their vote elsewhere because these people do not deserve it.
Let's compare the racial outreach for a second. One of these candidates is a rich, mixed race person with minimal to no personality whatso goddamn ever, and is an entire establishment shill. And the other, his racial outreach took the form of public mugshotting, which honestly, not to be crass or overly mimetic or anything, but I suspect that the majority of the black community, insofar as that's even a thing, is more inclined to root for the guy who the establishment hates and who they want to see in jail than the rich brat who claims to have been middle class for basically nothing but marketing reason versus the guy who literally every force on this earth has tried to dethrone since 8 years ago. Up to and including several times when he was shot at repeatedly. I have a feeling that there are lots of inner city black people who can relate a bit to that, sad but true.
Well, it's more than just that. I've actually seen videos where Trump has actually gone out to black communities to sit down, and talk with them, himself, and ask her and be asked her real questions and listen to real people's problems. Like Kamala Harris will not do anything that is not scripted. Like every single interview she does, the questions are pre-approved, beforehand. And I even saw a video of this quote unquote town hall event where someone asked if they could ask Kamala Harris questions, and then one of her aides said that no, the questions have all been pre-screened, but they hope that they ask questions that you can talk about. So everything about this woman's candidacy is fake. None of it is real or genuine.
Yeah, it's almost as though the people in the country, the people with the votes, are like people with agency and individual personalities and problems and shit that actually should be, I don't know, maybe addressed at some point ever.
All right,
But
we've been
apparently the
talking for
establishment does not agree with that. You will vote what we tell you to vote because we are totally not a one party system or anything.
I gotta say though, a lot of black women are unfortunately locked in for Harris because I've noticed that so many black women will literally just vote along racial lines and not even think twice about it, and not even look for any more substance than that, which is really unfortunate. In fact, I would actually like to do a separate stream where we talk about black women in the black community because I feel like black women have been had a lot of influence in the black community over the past decades, but I don't think it's actually led us to anywhere good.
Mm,
But I would like to do a separate stream on that. But let's get into this video we have from Tim Pool.
yep. Meanie beanie comments.
Thanks, Obama. He's calling out Trump's toxic masculinity. And you know what? I got to say, it's about time somebody called out Trump's toxic masculinity. At a time when Kamala Harris is sinking among men, she is losing male voters en masse. This is what they decided to do. No, Trump's not a real man. Yo, let me play it straight. You've got men who want to be women playing in women's sports. This is a huge issue. They're calling it a sleeper issue. Okay, I'm civil libertarian. Okay, I'm a slightly liberal dude, but I'm for Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you this: if you're older than 18 and you want to, take pills and do what you want to do with your life, I mostly say, okay, do your thing. I say mostly, right? Because there's a lot of issues where maybe we say we got to have some restrictions. But if you want to live your life as a woman to the best of your abilities, you're not a woman, you're biologically male. Then I say, fine, do your thing. But this is a sleeper issue because parents are upset at what's happening with their kids in these sports. So when you've got things like this, when you've got gender ideology, it's not playing to anybody when Obama comes out and says, that's not what real strength is. Trump is not masculine. We got this clip.
Okay,
It's not
stop.
masculine to stand up after getting shot.
Yeah, I was literally just about to. The man is in his late 70s, mind you. This is long past his testosterone prime, and yet, despite being 70 some odd years old, the man was Breakfast Club fisting the air after getting shot. Literal seconds after getting shot, the man was Breakfast Club fisting the air and screaming "Fight, fight, fight" like a fucking football chant. Now, I'm all for more wide-ranging definitions of masculinity and everything, but even if you want to go with the most narrow, most cavemanish definitions of masculine as you want, that is fucking masculine to, at the late 70s period of your life, get shot at and then immediately just be Breakfast Club fisting the air, pumping everybody up. The hell is that not masculine? I don't.
How is it toxic as well? It shows bravery, dedication, patriotism, all very positive things. But they're trying to
Because
spin
they
this.
view masculinity as a harmful, childish delusion that people need to wake up from. That's why.
Speaking of masculinity, though,
Yeah.
I asked, what do you want to bet that Trump has a higher testosterone level than Barack Obama?
It would. Okay, I'm not gonna insult Obama because he is actually aging quite well. Um,
I mean,
but
it's also aging. I mean, he may be aging quite well, but I mean, I don't think that really matters because when it comes to embodying the masculine virtues that are being put on display, like everybody, people on the left oftentimes revere Barack Obama, but Donald Trump is actually leading from the front, and that's one of the things that a lot of men respect is that when you are willing to, continue fighting, even risking your own life for the things you believe in, that gets a lot of respect.
yeah, again, the man was Breakfast Club fisting the air seconds after getting shot. That's again, there is no definition of masculinity that would not include that, and or be a serious definition of masculinity. Like if your definition of masculinity does not include something that primal and symbolic and frankly fucking mythic, then your definition of masculinity is not sufficient for the use of anyone.
And it was very brave of him to actually go back to Butler, PA, where he was shot, and hold yet another rally.
And just
That
for the sake of mimetic greatness here, he literally opened the rally with, so as I was saying, this chart over here, I can't fucking, again, like, you may have problems with Trump and you may not, and it's whatever, but if you can honestly tell me that that isn't the most baller move for someone to do in the circumstances, I'm sorry, your definition of what is and isn't cool is wrong. Like, objectively on some level, or at least intersubjectively.
Yeah. So let's get back to the video.
Yeah.
From Bill Maher, where he's like, why do people think Trump is masculine? He's got bronzer. He never shuts up. And Buck Sexton breaks it down. But let me show you Barack Obama first, and let's talk about what masculinity is and how you, as the Democrats, think that by insulting and demeaning men, blaming them for everything, they've been running these memes for years where they're like, you've got a bowl of M&Ms. 10% of them are poison. Go ahead, take a handful. Not all men, right? Yet nobody wants to hear that because bad people exist of all types, that means one whole group of people is particularly bad. So now you've got men who have been demonized by the Democratic Party and the woke ideologues and gender ideologists for so long that they're leaving the Democratic Party and they're going to Donald Trump. Why? Because...
Hold on, I just want to comment on the M&M's metaphor.
Yeah.
That's inaccurate because one, it's way, way less than 10%. And two, when we actively try to remove the poison M&Ms, you'll get a bunch of insane liberal women screaming, "Oh, but you're discriminating against the poor poisoned ones. It's not their fault that they're poisoned." And maybe if you just taught them how not to be poisoned, then they wouldn't poison and kill people.
Okay, but on that point though, we do know that most of the people who engage in the kind of genuinely toxic bullshit like rape and so on, of those people, almost all rapes are committed firstly by repeat offenders, and secondly, the cause of much of this statistic is early childhood trauma. Almost all people who are abusive were themselves abused, and only a small fraction of the people who are abused become abusers. So we could resolve this by, I don't know, resolving men's issues and treating men like human goddamn fucking beings. Just maybe. And treating young boys like their lives and contributions to the world matter and they should be taken care of just as much as little girls are. Because no one is saying we shouldn't be looking after little girls. But at least some of us are saying, why in the fuck aren't we including boys in that category? Do not all children or vulnerable people in general deserve to, be cared for and respected and sentimentally valued? Because, of course, in modern day feminist or modern day intersectional logic, no, boys and men get way too much attention, love, and care, and therefore we have to equalize, quote unquote, this matter by taking that care away from men and giving it to women, where it always was, because women and children first has always been the mantra of society basically since time immemorial. Like, even in the Muslim world, the reason why women are bound to the home in that way that feminists hate so much, it's because when you're in a war-torn Middle Eastern country, you prioritize the safety of those you care about over their necessary ability to exhibit agency. As a result, women and girls get locked in the house where they will be safe, and men and boys frequently get blown the fuck up, either by their own hand because of indoctrination, or because somebody else decided that suicide bombing was a thing he needed to do. Should we maybe address the problems of men that make it feasible for them to want to blow themselves up? No, because that would actually address the problem, and we're not interested in addressing the problem. We're interested in lavishing as much as we can on women and demonizing the shit out of men because derp reasons. Moving.
I agree with everything that you just said. What I'm just saying in regards to the analogy, I'm just saying it's hypocritical of them to constantly complain about being victimized, but then when we catch the victimizers, they complain that they're being, treated misfairly, and then let back into the population where they go on to victimize again. I'm absolutely saying that we should, treat people. I'm also saying that we have to remove them from the population as well because we know now that they're just going to keep victimizing.
Yeah. And the best option is to engage in men's rights so that fewer people get traumatized and therefore fewer people will start exhibiting the cluster B personality disorders that lead to things like violence and rape and all of this allegedly toxic shit. Moving on.
Trump is brash. He's aggressive. He's a bully. And people are like, at least he's standing in front of me. And the Democrats are attacking me. MSNBC, look at this. As Donald Trump hurls increasingly vile insults at Kamala Harris, former President Barack Obama, campaigning for Harris, admonished men for supporting Trump. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, gentlemen. I've noticed this especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior, the bullying and the putting people down, is a sign of strength. And I'm here to tell you that's not what real strength is. It never has been. Real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Well, I seem to recall when Dr. Jordan Peterson said, find the heaviest thing you can carry and carry it, they called him a Nazi. Not kidding.
They also called him weak when he cried at the plight of young men because he noticed that so many men had not received this kind of treatment in their lives that they were looking for it from him and how sad he thought it was. And a bunch of shit stirrers on both sides decided, oh, he's so weak, he's so vulnerable, he's not a paragon of masculinity, therefore we should mock him for it. Even though those very same people, at least half of them, because it came from the intersectionalists and from the traditionalists, half of those people keep saying, men should feel free to be vulnerable and express their emotions. And then the second Jordan Peterson expresses an emotion that doesn't fit their schema, oh, he's a weak beta male bitch, and we should just mock him for showing empathy to young men who have had a hard hand in life, apparently. Same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse, actually. He cries on the witness stand, and everybody goes, what a beta male bitch. But had he not cried on the witness stand, everyone would have been sitting there calling him a callous, aloof sociopath. There is no win on this issue. If you cry, if you express emotion, they will mock you for those emotions if they're not ideologically correct. And if you refuse to express emotions on the grounds of having your guard up, they will call you a callous, dismissive, toxic sociopath. There is no win state, goddammit.
Yeah, and it really does piss me off because I've seen a lot of videos lately of left-wing pundits, particularly Hassan Piker, talk about how he talked about how on a lot of men's spaces are almost entirely right wing. Well, that's because the left has spent over a decade just shitting on men and boys, and even when they try to bring up issues, that are of real concern, like the men, unaliving themselves, taking their own lives, they usually either one mock them or say, "What about women?" But
or that's a good thing because patriarchy.
Yeah, the left wing isn't offering anything that young men are interested in. They want to feel hope that they could work hard and build up their lives, have a family, have a home, work hard and have a good life. And all basically they're telling you is to sit down, shut up, and let us walk all over you because my equity.
And let's add another wrinkle here. Most of the people like Hassan who are confused as to why so many young men are right wing now are confused because when Hassan and his were growing up, the left was where the freedom of expression group went. The problem and the difference, Mr. Hassan, and all the other confused leftoids as to why the younger generation isn't left wing, is because when that happened in the 90s, when the left was the half of the thing that cared about freedom of expression and freedom of speech and shit, it was because there was an overly authoritarian, traditionalistic family values contingent in the world that was stifling freedom of expression. However, now the Overton window has shifted to such a degree that it is the left being moralistically authoritarian and the right who is in favor of freedom of expression. I actually don't think this is a partisan thing at all. I don't think young people are naturally predisposed to being either right or left. My standing theory is that the young people will go wherever freedom of expression and freedom of agency are allowed, and against any overgrown, bureaucratic, moralistically authoritarian structure. Because the youth are the people who push on society's boundaries to figure out where the previous generation went wrong and how to correct for it. And as such, the left or right will draw whoever it can by virtue of being for freedom of expression. And in the current paradigm, ideas like critical theory, social justice, etc., are the moralistically overbearing party, and so the right is what draws the people interested in freedom of expression. If that switches over again to the point where we're back to 90s style traditionalistic family values bullshit, the left will once again start drawing the people interested in freedom of expression. Because as usual, the left-right distinction is utterly meaningless in comparison to the libertarian authoritarian distinction.
That's true, and I've actually seen a lot of people who are right wing say that what their vision for the future is people having families and then just basically going off somewhere and living living the way they want to without government interference.
Yeah, and how in the name of fuck did that become controversial? Oh, that's right, because something family is oppressive. Derp.
Yeah, like I've talked to them more about getting kids out of like government run schools and homeschooling their kids or getting them into good private schools, which I absolutely support because like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing coming out of government run schools is just abysmal. It's completely ineffective. It's turning out people who can barely read or write or do basic math. And, that's one of the things that I like about Donald Trump. Did you hear his announcement with Elon Musk of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge?
I mean, my God, that's fucking. First of all, I'm just happy to see Elon involved in government, period, because if we must have an oligarchic capitalistic overlord in the future, I would rather throw my lot in with Elon Musk than Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos, or Soros. So if we must have an oligarch, let it be the based oligarch. Seriously.
The idea of a department that monitors the efficiency of government should have been something that was implemented decades ago. Like, God, how much
Decades,
trouble would be
centuries
saved
ago,
if
it
this
would have been
department had
nice, but never mind.
I mean,
Because that
that's
is
why
the
when it
flaw of
comes
every government: is the bureaucratic competency epidemic, or competency crisis, inefficient bullshit. Because we're so preoccupied with whether we should raise spending or lower spending that we forget the more important question, which is what exactly are we spending this shit on, and could we perhaps be spending it on better and more productive things? Which is hopefully exactly where Elon's head is at. Which, again, if we must have an oligarch, let it be the based one.
yes, if the Department of Government Efficiency is going to go after anything in the federal government to improve things, I would want them to go after the Department of Education that we just talked about, and also the Food and Drug Administration, because that's another big thing that Trump's and RFK have been talking about is making America healthy again. And a lot of the stuff in our food is just ultra processed garbage. And when you
Yeah,
compare it to the food that's in Europe, it's night and day. It's so much worse for the human body.
You can also compare it to farm boys from the 1950s compared to city boys now. Like you can literally
Hell,
even
even
see it
city boys from the 50s.
in their physiognomy. Like their jaw lines are freaking Herculean compared to our jaw lines today and such.
I mean, hell, even comparing them to other city dwellers in the 1950s, city dwellers back then were still much more fit. And that's one of the and fitness is very important. And I want Donald Trump to come in and take steps to improve the health of the country. And I think that this is very important because one of the things that Democrats talk about is that, oh, we need abortion because when black women go to give birth, a lot of them end up dying because of racial inequity in healthcare. But they never ever bring up the fact that black women is one of the most unhealthiest demographic in America. Do you think maybe that could have something to do with it? The fact that a lot of their diets are absolutely garbage and they're
Yeah,
obese and unhealthy.
the stereotype of the plus-sized black woman, the Lashana and so on, is so universal that it almost goes without saying that if you think of a black woman, she will probably be plus sized. And I'm not saying that all people who are plus sized are unhealthy, but a large percentage of the people who start off being plus sized soon rocket past that in the rearview mirror and go straight up obese. And that's not healthy.
Yeah, and so they're using, the idea that it's, a race issue when it's a health issue instead. And, the whole fat acceptance thing is really one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard in my life. As someone who has struggled with weight isn't like for most of his life, like I don't want to keep this or, accept this. My goal is to get it the fuck off of me. And so when I hear people say that, oh, you're healthy at 50, I say like, no, you were destroying yourselves, you stupid morons.
I'm rather lucky that honestly, as part of my disability, my body has to burn like twice the calories in order to do basic shit. And so I've always been relatively skinny perennially. I actually have the opposite problem where I can't really put on weight. But given the options, I'm happy with my stupidly high metabolism because disability makes life hard. Because I don't want to be a lard ass to pardon my French a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I, work out and I'm trying to eat healthier, but like, whenever I go to the store to get food, like, a lot of the stuff, even though it on the packaging, it's supposed to be healthy, like, it's actually freaking garbage. Like, have you ever looked at the ingredients of a lot of the um options in the butter section of the dairy aisle?
Yes, I have.
It's
It's
garbage.
it's horrifying is the word, I think.
Yeah, I always buy like I will only buy butter if it has the following ingredients: cream, salt. They're the only ingredients that I'm willing to buy that it contains. If
Yeah,
it contains anything more than that, I'm not buying it.
that would, in in the history of things that shouldn't be controversial apparently being controversial now, the fact that butter should contain the ingredients for butter, I wouldn't think would be particularly controversial, but alas, we live in Orwell's nightmare, and so it apparently is controversial now. There's actually a really great channel called Evil Food Supply that I would recommend to everyone, especially the people who watch stuff like our show, because there's a good chance that if you're interested in our show, you're also interested in a bunch of the other establishment lies that go unchallenged. And Evil Food Supply is a great channel for food documentaries that explain how we got in this perma-fucked obese causing state to begin with.
It really just seems that the two messages behind these campaigns are, you know, with Donald Trump and his, honestly coalition of forces that he's assembled there is, vote for us. Let's all roll up our sleeves. Let's work hard. We'll have a better country, and you will have a better life. Whereas Kamala and the Democrats, it's sit down, shut up, vote for us, don't complain, and let us do what we want, and then we'll throw stuff at you.
Yeah, and on the "will throw stuff at you" part of that equation, it's funny that that part of the equation, the part where people get stuff back from them, is usually the part of the equation that is the most forgotten when they're actually in power. Is it not funny how that works?
It's been that way for decades, and honestly, I'm surprised that people at this point are still buying for the same old bullshit.
Which again goes back to all hail the Doge oligarch. Which fucking
No,
hell, I love that Elon like had the foresight to name it the Doge because, of course, anyone who is a proud flag waving Kyrgyzstani knows that the Doge has been a meme since at least like 2016, 2017. So good on you, Elon, for once again proving that you can, in fact, Chad yes every meme, and it can actually work for the benefit of society.
I mean,
I
thinking about
hope
it,
that Elon has a Kyrgyzstani flag somewhere. I might actually buy him one if I ever get a chance to meet him and give it to him.
thinking about it, if this Department of Government Efficiency works, the Trump administration will be able to trim down a lot of the unnecessary spending because, dear God, that is a lot of it. And if he can trim down the size of the government and unnecessary spending, we won't need as much taxes. And so he can cut taxes, and people will be able to keep a lot more of the money they earn to invest in their own lives and improvement.
And even if it doesn't result in a reduction in taxes, it might actually allow that the money we pay actually goes to shit that benefits us instead of a tiny sliver of the pie that benefits us potentially, not much in actuality, and then the whole ass rest of the pie goes to bureaucratic bullshit, earmarks, and foreign subsidies, which don't want to be a hyper nationalist or anything here for a second, but shouldn't the benefits of a society go to the people who actually, make up that society if it goes anywhere? But then again, I guess I'm old fashioned in the regard of the people whose country it is should be benefited by said country, and the people whose country it is not probably have not no stake in it, but a far less stake in it than otherwise, surely.
Yeah. Did you hear the story about JD Vance trying to go to a Permanente Brothers restaurant in Pennsylvania and being refused entry and a lot of customers getting pissed off and leaving?
This I did not hear. No, what happened?
Well, JD Vance is going to make a campaign stop at a Permanente Brothers in Pittsburgh, and a lot of the customers came there, to see them, and they were, drinking and ordering food. But when the restaurant management said that he was not able to come in, everybody got pissed off and everybody left. And they
Yeah,
canceled their orders. They paid for what they ate and drank, but any outstanding orders were canceled, and they all left.
which shouldn't be in any way unforeseeable, considering that, like, from an early age, we are taught in the American educational system of this bygone era where people would literally not be able to be served because of who or what they are. And yet, the party that claims that it is speaking for the people, is speaking for our democracy, quote unquote, doesn't see the optics failure in literally pulling "I'm sorry, sir, you can't eat here" in 2020 goddamn 4, for God's sake.
Want to know
Because
what pisses me off about that the most, Dalton?
go for it.
That was my town. I could walk to that restaurant.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that, but I forgot whether you were in Pittsburgh or whether you were in Philly, and I didn't want to make an ass of
Not
myself.
just not just Pittsburgh, in that township.
So you're telling me you were within a hair's breadth of meeting JD Vance?
Yes, but I didn't know he was going to be there.
Hopefully it will try again after the backlash settles, and you'll get to drink with the dude. 'Cause that just
But
sounds fun.
yeah, but it really does, piss me off because there was a report that I saw while watching another one of Tim Pool's videos. It's that the left wing, by the way that they get their news and the sources that they use, have no idea what the other people in the country actually think. They
No,
are so disconnected from the rest of the country.
because they literally consider only their framework is the valid framework, and they would actually consider it a moral wrong to give any other framework the time of day. It's one of the reasons that while I am left wing policy wise, most of my friends are on the more conservative side because I actually value this thing we call logically consistent and principled behavior. And so I'm not going to listen to people who say you must not listen to this perspective because it's morally invalid. Because I understand the idea that usually it's the people who claim moral superiority that are doing the censorious authoritarian bullshit. And that is a standard that almost never has done me wrong. The people who authoritarianly virtue signal are almost always the people actually doing the censorship, and it's always been that way as long as I can remember.
All right, I want to talk a moment about liberal women, or as I've come to understand them, the destroyers of civilization. Uh, because one of the things that I've seen a lot on social media is that women will vote for Kamala Harris purely on the subject of abortion. And here's the thing: I'm not saying that you shouldn't consider abortion as a topic when considering, but if it's the only issue, then I'm starting to think that maybe we should repeal the 19th because that is the dumbest thing imaginable. You're going to vote on this one issue and one issue alone and completely ignore how she has managed to screw up literally damn near every other aspect of the country, from the economy to the border to crime. Like, you're going to ignore all that and just vote so that you could kill your unborn children.
And this is especially ironic when you consider that despite many attempts to the contrary by the NSM, Trump has been consistent basically since the 80s that even if he's skeptical of abortion, he believes in it with regards to with the life of the mother threatened or with rape and incest, which is a which actually gets him in trouble with his base because a lot of people are more like evangelical than he is, but that is a perfectly reasonable compromise, and that basically means that Trump will not ever pass a national abortion ban because, to quote him, he believes in the exceptions. And I don't see how people cannot grasp that when you consider that Trump has been consistent on it since the goddamn 80s. It's the same thing with Project 2025. Every anti-Trump campaign ad I've seen goes Agenda 2025, and I'm like, he has literally stated till he was blue in the face several times that he has no interest in Project 2025 and will not do anything with regards to it. So what in the actual fuck? You can't just pretend like the man hasn't addressed the. It's like the Charlottesville thing. People are still somehow bringing up the Charlottesville thing as if that is not something that he has addressed ad nauseum for the last 8 years and change. God damn it!
Yeah, and they're still bringing up January 6th, and I do not care about January 6th. Shut up about it. It's
Yeah,
not going to affect the way most people vote.
and nobody does because they keep trying to astroturf it being the next 9/11 or some shit, and yet most people, when they look at it and go, oh, this protest lasted for only a couple hours and they were let into the building and they mostly stayed within um the fucking tourist lines or tourist ropes the entire time. Meanwhile, entire cities were burnt the fuck to the ground over George Floyd, and yet there is no moral equivalency between that and 9/11, none whatsoever. Even if it lasted for 6 months on and off, and a extreme version of it in the form of the Chaz lasted for almost a month. It was like 3.5 weeks. That a capital city was literally goddamn occupied. But the 3.5 weeks that Chaz existed, not equivalent to 9/11 whatsoever. The couple of hours where January 6th existed, totally equivalent to 9/11, even if it was less harmful than the Chaz. Somehow. Oh god, these people.
All right, let's go a little bit more.
Yep.
Because he said, we have free speech. You can't compel me to speak. It's absurd. They were like, you're alt-right. They attacked him when he simply said, clean your room, be responsible. They attacked him for it. And these young men who were looking for a mission, a purpose to fulfill their desires to be good people did not find it with you. And so they turned to people that give them a modicum of what they've been looking for. So you wonder why it is Andrew Tate gets so popular. You wonder why it is Donald Trump gets so popular. You do not get to spit in the face of young men and then act surprised when they abandon you for anyone willing to show a tiny bit of leadership, gratitude. Because the message you're going to get from Jordan Peterson and from Tate and from Donald Trump, whether you like their characters or not, I think Jordan Peterson's a good dude. Many are critical of Andrew Tate for a variety of reasons. I think much of this criticism is appropriate. Don't know a lot about the guy, but there's a lot to criticize the guy over. I'm not saying those cases against them are real, because as far as I can tell, they're not. I'm just saying you got these guys that are worthy of criticism, but you know what they do? They look in the eyes of the young men and they say, you're worth it, and you can be the greatest. There's a video from Andrew Tate. You can rag on him all you want, but this video, he says, rocket ship going to the moon doesn't stop halfway. It takes off, it keeps going, it burns until it gets there. You cannot start and then rest and take a break. You need to keep pushing. He's got another video where he says, it doesn't matter how you feel. As a man, you will wake up and you may be sad, you may be tired, you may be depressed. It doesn't matter what you feel. What matters is you get up and you do your job. Now,
and you can expand this out even more to the whole toxic fandom culture war bullshit. When people in charge of an IP literally say to their core audience, we don't want you, go the fuck away, and then they are Kel Surprise when the men eventually listen to that request and shut the fuck up and go the fuck away, thus resulting in every single one of these allegedly social justice or woke-oriented things to crash and burn, because surprise fucking surprise, when you tell your main audience, we don't want you, go the fuck away, at first people are going to be upset by that, and eventually they're just going to go, okay, you don't want us? You want us to go the fuck away? We will go the fuck away. Have fun bombing for the Checks Notes 40th time this month. And yet they don't see how that is in any way related to anything. You can't tell people, we don't want you, go the fuck away, and then be surprised when they take that message to heart and go the fuck away. This is basic logic, surely. Am I the asshole, or is everyone else just fucking insane?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody else is just insane, because, these industries, they keep insulting the people who buy them, whether it's Gillette, whether it's Bud Light, whether it's the gaming industry. They keep insulting their customers, and then when inevitably their sales crash into the earth, they, stare Pikachu face, wondering what the hell just happened.
How could this have happened? We only told them to go the fuck away, and they went the fuck away. How is that logical?
I mean, the gaming industry is really going through it right now. Holy shit.
Yeah, how is Concord doing? And to contrast that, how is Black Myth Wukong or Helldivers doing? Could it possibly be that the correct response to your audience being mad at you is the customer is always right in matters of taste? I feel really archaic when I bring this up, but back in the day when there were the cola wars or the console wars or the like brand loyalty between Microsoft and Apple, the industry at large understood imperfectly because sometimes their attempts to cater to their audience misfired because it was pandering nonsense. But even when catering to your audience it is, backfires because you were too stupid to realize the difference between fan service and pandering, that's still a much more profitable model than we don't like our audience, we want a morally and intellectually superior one, so everyone we don't find morally pure enough needs to get the fuck out. Like, in one of these cases, people are willing to affiliate with the brand, be it Microsoft and Apple, be it a console or be it a drink brand or whatever. And in one of these cases, eventually everything fucking burns because when you tell your audience we don't like you, get the fuck out, eventually they will internalize that knowledge and go the fuck away.
One of the things about the gaming industry is that now they seem to actively hate beauty. Like
Yes.
a lot of people will look at these characters that they're making, and it'll be like the ugliest shit you can imagine. You have to go out of your way to create something this ugly.
Yeah,
But
because they consider
it's
beauty
really,
standards to be immoral or something.
especially when it's an existing IP where they will take something that was beautiful and then make it uglier. And I've seen you know this is a tr- this is a trend that I've seen in the video game industry. It seems that a lot of this is occurring the more blue haired women you get into the development team, because this is one of the interesting things, because they say that boys and girls play with toys in two different ways. Whenever a boy plays with Batman, he makes Batman do Batman things. He behaves in the way that Batman would. But when a girl plays with Batman, Batman becomes like the girl, and Batman does what the girl wants to do. And I honestly think that that's mapping onto the gaming industry, where a lot of these blue-haired women are coming into the development teams, and they're making the games more like what they want than more like what the IP actually is supposed to be. And I think there's no greater example than this in recent days than Dragon Age Veilguard. Dragon Age Origins was a gritty, blood-soaked, dark fantasy with attractive characters, and Dragon Age Veilguard is a bunch of ambiguous horseshit.
And as we know, it's not just the gaming industry. It's the comic book industry, the TV industry, the movie industry, the fucking anime industry, or at least they're trying their damnedest to get into the anime industry because they realized, wait, you mean people aren't bound to consume the same products forever? You mean they can actually find meaningful alternatives to the shit they like being destroyed? And again, it goes back to this Frankfurt School ideology that says meritocracy, beauty standards, um, it, basically everything good about a form of art or a form of entertainment is subjective, and therefore it's meaningless, and therefore it's a harmful, childish, immoral delusion that we, as the moral superiors of the people who consume the product, have to wake people up out of.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
I
no,
don't know.
how could they possibly not choose to consume the thing we changed everything about so as to disin disentangle them in the fandom because fandom bad, derp.
Yeah. I gotta say, I hope Japan wakes the fuck up and kicks these people out, because China and Korea are both coming for their share of the entertainment market. China just had a big win with Black Myth Wukong, but it's also having a big win in the mobile gacha areas with, Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Zenless Zone Zero. Meanwhile, Korea is, cutting into the Japanese manga sales with their manhwa comics, which are a bit different than Japanese manga because manhwa are colored rather than just
Yeah.
in black and white. So if Japan doesn't get their shit together, Korea and China are going to eat their lunch.
The good news is the only inroads the SJW types have been able to make is in the localizer translator sphere, and thanks to the miracles of AI coming at just the right time, Japan is realizing, wait, we don't even need to deal with your ideological bullshit. We can just have the AI do shit for us.
It is a bit more than that, unfortunately. Did you see the interview that, unfortunately, it's been taken offline now? But did you see the interview with the creator of Dragon Quest?
I
It
did
was from the
not.
Tokyo Game Show, I believe. Okay, so in Dragon Quest, one of the granddaddy classics of JRPGs, you have
Yeah.
these party members that you can have in your party, and one of them, the female warrior, she has bikini armor, and it's a bit of a sexy design, but it's classic, and also it was made by the goat himself, Akira Toriyama. But in the recent Dragon Quest HD 2D remake game, they changed the design of the female warrior to give her undergarments under her armor. And the creative Dragon Quest himself is that, you know, we didn't really want to do this, but in order to deal with Western gaming industries, we had to censor that. Also, we weren't allowed to have male and female. We had to change it to A and B. And he also said, "Who the hell believes this crap? Like this is ridiculous. You people are insane." I mean, and when I say that, I mean he actually freaking said that shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
and so that's why people were mad and they had to take it down because most of the community was saying based and the other half was saying we're screeching their minds.
yeah, because my dear sir, don't get a erroneous impression here. We don't like this shit either. It's the morally and academically quote unquote superior class that are infecting our shit with this as much as your shit. Because honestly, no one who isn't a neo-Hegelian Frankfurt School brat or critical theory brat actually thinks that meritocracy is some kind of childish delusion people need to be deprogrammed from. But the people that do are very good at institutional capture, and that's why manga has gone up in the Western market because we couldn't get what we wanted from our homegrown industries, so we went with yours. Please don't let them drag you down to our level.
Yeah, but I don't remember his exact wording, but I believe he called it a religion of evil.
I mean, based and
Yeah, he
well, based and accurate at the same time. God damn it!
yes, he was unfathomably based. And it was a great video. Unfortunately, there was enough reading that they ended up having to take it down. But while it
Uh
existed,
huh.
it was fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, the old school Anita Sarkeesian song is being played, and the verses are always the same. God damn it! Uh,
I would
anyway,
also recommend that you look up videos, or I'll send you some, regarding a new game that came out called Unknown Nine Awakening. Apparently, the sales were so terrible, people are saying that it sold 0 copies.
so it pulled the Concord then.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with Concord, Sony is performing some sort of dark necromancy. They're going to make Concord free to play, I believe. Like they're not selling it; they're just going to make it free to play.
My suspicion is that's not going to help matters because something being free to play doesn't actually change the demand for it that much. It can if there's something substantive about it, but I genuinely don't think Concord as an IP is so poisoned from the off that I don't think anyone is going to sincerely play it other than for the mimetic point, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Why
who
would
knows?
anybody play Concord where they could play the first Descendant with sexy Korean characters? Like
Or
that's really it. Like they are screeching because of the sexy designs of the female characters in First Descendant, including one where I believe there was a character called Freya who's essentially wearing fishnets and a thong as part of one of her alternate skins, and half the part was going yeah, and another half was going.
yeah. You see, no matter how much you SJW types believe that beauty standards are some sort of harmful, childish, arbitrary, subjective thing, um, reality, though, and the reality, though, is that beauty standards and quality standards and like storytelling standards are probably, when all is said and done, rooted in some kind of evolutionary psychology. Like that is the fundamental truth of it. These kinds of things can be remixed by cultural standards a little bit, but there is a background of them which is probably rooted in evolutionary psychology after a certain fashion. And you can't unless you literally start sterilizing people, you can't undo evolutionary psychology. It is not feasible or plausible until you start going full mid-century German and literally sterilizing people you find to be evolutionarily insufficient. But that would also require you to believe that, like, biological realities can be manipulated through evolution, and another part of your ideology says that everything is a social construct. So you either have to betray your construct in one way by admitting that beauty standards are evolutionary psychological after a fashion, or you have to betray them in another way and say that biological reality is real enough that we need to manipulate evolution. And these are your choices, this rock or this hard place. There are no other options. The only other option is that you fail by virtue of everything you believe being fundamentally wrong on every vector. Which seems to be the one they're deciding to go with, so all the more power to them as far as I'm concerned. The more publicly and gauntletly you fail, the more likely we might get back to the gold standard of the old days, which is the customer is always right in matters of taste, and therefore our audience base is not fundamentally immoral for liking the shit that we sell them. It's a weird thing that even has to be explained, but we'll get there, or we'll get back there eventually, I hope. Anyway, more Tim Pool probably is a good idea.
Let's go for a little while longer and then wrap it up.
Yep.
By all means, criticize Andrew Tate for whatever you want, but those statements smack right in the face of these young men. And they contrast it with the Democrats have been saying. You are toxically masculine. The things you want are bad things. You're a bully. You're wrong. You are privileged. So a young man who can't find a job, who ends up homeless, men who are more likely to try and take their own lives, more likely to end up homeless, more likely to be victims of violent crime, are sitting there saying, why do you hate me so much? And then they see Andrew Tate saying, you could be a rocket to the moon. You got to work. And they say, anything you say, bro, I take that message. That's all it takes. All it takes. But they don't give it to you. They get you this. That's not what real strength is. That's not real strength. You have beaten down Donald Trump. They tried to kill him. They, as in the assassins.
Twice.
The people who hate him have stopped at nothing to drag this man to the depths. He's sacrificed his personal wealth for being president. Now, you can say it's because he wants the ego. It's because he wants to be. I don't care. Donald Trump is showing young men sacrifice. He's showing them hard work in the face of adversity. Don't you get it? You are lining them up to be knocked over. Donald Trump may be Bill Maher. Let me play this clip for you from Bill Maher. Donald Trump may be a guy who won't shut up, who's a braggart, who lies all the time, who's overweight with browns around his face. And does it shock you at the least bit that they view him as more masculine than you? Does it shock you in the least bit that young men think Trump is more masculine than anything the Democratic Party has to offer? Because y'all have treated young men like trash. You've blamed them for too many problems. I'm not going to say all of them, but too often. You've talked about male privilege, men who have been falsely accused, who have gone to jail or been kicked out of the university for things they did not do, and they are saying enough. So let me play the clip for you. I want to show you what Buck Sexton has to say about this too. The Democrats' male problem.
There's a huge gender gap. And, I've done this one to death too, but, someone has to explain to me why people who love Trump see him as this icon of masculinity, this man who I used
Okay, pause it.
Because am I going to...
Bill, the reason that people see him as a paragon of masculinity is, just to use the most recent and salient example, the man was being shot at, and mere seconds later was pumping his audience up by Breakfast Club fisting the sky as a, iconically American flag rustled in the background of that same shot. The thing that's confusing me, Bill, is how in the fuck can't you see it? And to Tim's point prior to this moment, it's not even that the right is all that more willing to cater to men. It's that the left keeps ceding the ground. You don't like that people are seeing like masculine virtues in people like Donald Trump or Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson? Fine. Offer a meaningful alternative then. Because this is the thing. I will concede, for the sake of the argument, that some of the things these men do are toxic or wrong or erroneous or whatever the fuck. But when they're the only ones saying the things people want to hear, any port in a goddamn storm. You don't want people to view Trump as the most, like, epitome of masculinity. You don't want people to view Jordan Peterson as a male mentor figure. You don't want people to view Andrew Tate as a Giga Chad. Then produce some of your own that don't have the negative qualities that you see in these people. That's the thing. If I'll use the political example as an example. If the Democrats had run Andrew Yang or Andrew Tate, or no, sorry, or Ro Khanna or Cornel West, instead of making those people run third party, I would be voting for President Andrew Yang or President Tulsi Gabbard. In a fucking heartbeat would I do so, because for all of my common ground with more conservative people, I am still policy-wise very left-wing. But you won't give me a meaningful alternative to Trump. You won't give me a left-wing libertarian or a left-wing populist or a left-wing person who has a decent personality, is good on the issues, and has a meaningful brain in their heads. You keep forcing me to choose between everything I hate about the establishment coalesced into a single person, and a person who, while imperfect, is at least populist, libertarian, and has a good goddamn policy grade track record. This is a no-brainer. It's not that I am more right-wing than you or anything. It's because the left keeps telling me to get the fuck out. And I can only deal with being told to leave so many times before I'm like, okay, if it's a choice between someone who has some good qualities and someone who has none, I'm gonna roll my dice with the guy who has at least some good qualities. This should be no-brainer, but it isn't for some reason. Anyway, go on, because we should finish Bill's bit, I guess.
Contrast Donald Trump and Bill Maher. Bill, bro, let's be real.
I was gonna say, Bill Maher's disgusting smugness never ceases to piss me off.
Yeah, I know. Even when he's right, it's sometimes annoying. But like every time he goes full boomer and says something like comic books should be only for little kids, or how are people obsessed with video games, etc. I just it fucking floors me. You would think he would realize that even if he truly believed this thing, that most people are going to dispute him on it. But he doesn't ever put on a sensible filter and think to himself, is this going to get people on my side, or is this going to piss everyone off somehow? And people wonder why a lot of people don't like him. Moving on.
Donald Trump's a tall guy. He's an aggressive guy. He doesn't take crap from anybody. He's recently taken a bullet, stood up and yelled, fight, fight, fight. And they say, what does the left say? What an idiot. Anybody who stands up while getting shot up is an idiot. You know, there are a lot of men who are idiots. They lead the charge. I'm going to say this. I know I got to play the clip. Donald Trump may be dumb for standing up with bullets flying. Sure. But I think Donald Trump made a choice. He wanted everyone to know that he was okay, that he was refusing to back down. With blood coming down the side of his face, he said, fight, fight, fight. I can't tell you how many young men probably saw that and said, I wish I was like him. Bronzer, overweight Donald Trump. Bill, what have you're an elitist in your LA studio, sitting there with a smirk on your face saying, oh, people like Donald Trump. Do you think young men look at you and they're like, I wish I was a suit and tie wearing smarmy guy on TV? Now, by all means, you can criticize Trump and say all these things.
I mean, here's the thing. Like even when watching Frasier, as pompous as Frasier Crane was, he still had more respect for the common man.
Yeah, because he actually seemed to view them as people, whereas our current political zeitgeist views the even implication that you should give people what they want to be an immoral affront to good and decency. And again, back to my previous point, if you don't want people to coalesce around Donald Trump, Jordan Peterson, and Andrew Tate, make your own version of them who has all the positive qualities and none of the negative ones. If you don't want me to vote Trump, which, by the way, I am an easily gettable person with regards to this because I am policy-wise rather left-wing, then give me a politician like Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Ro Khanna, Cornel West. Give me someone like that can be a meaningful alternative to Donald Trump. Hell, you could fucking run Mark Cuban, and that would be a more meaningful distinction between himself and Trump that I might at least be willing to entertain voting for Mark Cuban. But instead of that, instead of actually running something people want to vote for, you demonize populism. All the while, very ironically indeed, screaming ad nauseum about our democracy, which means that your definition of democracy is contrary to populism. Do you understand how that completely fucks people up? Because the word populace and the word demos, from which the word democracy is derived, are the same goddamn word in Latin and Greek, respectively. The idea that there can even be such a thing as a non-populist democracy or democratic republic is so head-fucked that it makes people do a double take and go cross-eyed just trying to work it through in their heads. But you won't provide a meaningful alternative. Your choice is either you can toe the establishment, normative, institutional, Overton window line and be a valid person, or you're subhuman and immoral and foreboding. Well, most people, I think, would be more willing to rebel against pompous establishment order and risk being immoral than deal with people who actually don't view us as people and think that everything we love, everything we want, everything we need is somehow immoral just for asking for it.
It's going to be very difficult for you to get the Democrat populist candidate that you desire, because you would need someone with basically the influence and the force of personality as Trump to basically force it in. Because they tried to stop Trump in the Republican Party as well, but Trump was just too damn powerful. He was able to basically take over the party and make it more populist. But I feel like the Democrat establishment, if a populist candidate actually did try to rise up, they would basically just use all of their force and influence to crush them.
Because populism, immoral, derp, something. If they were smart, they could have nipped this in the butt like years ago. Had they stayed on Elon Musk's side, you could have gotten an Elon Musk or an Elon Musk supported politician willing to run as a Democrat. That would have been child's play to do. And that actually would be a difficult choice to make, choosing Trump or Elon. But again, instead of providing a meaningful contradiction to the people you don't like, you would rather cede every positive ground to them than ever consider that populism and democracy should and must be related to each other. You would rather believe that than consider that your academic woo-woo jargon is utterly meaningless and counterintuitive. You would rather believe that meritocracy, quality, and virtue are harmful, childish, babyish delusions than ever consider that your enemy might have some good qualities that make them preferable to you. Which is funny because the second you realize that people like Trump, Jordan Peterson, and Andrew Tate have qualities that draw people into them, that will be the moment you finally realize we could run a left-wing equivalent of someone with those qualities and actually be a meaningful distinction between the right and the left. Because I'm the kind of guy who genuinely wanted to have the discussion with a Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump in 2020 or 2016. Instead, what we got was the grassroots Democrats can get fucked. The actual left of the party can get fucked because we don't want to deal with Bernie, even though he's the one with the ground level support. And they've done this multiple times. They did it with Biden. They did it with Kamala now. They did it with Biden and Kamala back in 2020 because they were both lower than Bernie, Tulsi, or Yang in terms of support. And yet they don't realize why that makes them fail. They don't realize why not deliberately and morally not giving their audience something they want makes them not likable somehow.
Well,
Moving on.
left-wing Democrat leadership is incredibly corrupt, but I also feel a lot of the left-wing grassroots stuff has been, consumed by radical ideology. Like you see that with like the Palestine protests, you see that with things like Antifa. So I just feel like it's like even if you try to go to the grassroots, like they're so ideological that they probably wouldn't even listen.
And that's fair, but you can't tell me that Bernie versus Trump in 2016 wouldn't have been a better reflection of what both parties want from their leadership than Trump versus Hillary was, or Trump versus Biden was, or Trump versus Kamala is.
True.
Even if the Antifa types are crazy, and they are, even if they are ideologically neo-Hegelian fuckwits, it's still a more meaningful distinction than no one gets what they want, or some people at least get some of what they want. And the funny thing is, these people are so out of touch, so trapped in the last paradigm, so trapped in normative institutions, Dev, that they literally cannot understand how giving some people some of what they want is preferable to.
I told this to Ian Crossland.
Sorry, I didn't mean to play it there, but thinking about it, perhaps if these people lose hard enough, it'll do enough damage to the structure of the party that maybe they can actually get back to common sense.
It might dawn on them, wait, are we the baddies? I keep hoping they'll have the are we the baddies moment, but they don't seem to be. Moving on, though.
Timcast IRL. I know some of you may have heard it, but I'm going to say it again. We idolize and champion the idea that there was a king who led his men into battle. What an idiot! He's going to die! So the king, standing in front of all of his horsemen, his cavalry, and he runs his sword across all of their...
Are you describing the battle of Pelennor Field?
I think you might be.
Their swords, and these men feel inspired. The king has clashed with their swords or their spears, and he's in front of them, and he will lead the charge himself. And he says to his men, I will never ask you to do something I would not do myself. Stand with me. And the king leads the charge. But this is crazy. Without the king, who will lead the men? He's bringing himself great personal risk, running full speed first into the enemy line. And the men are inspired. And they know, so long as he is willing, so by God, I am willing too. We will stand by that man.
Because we prefer people who are actually willing to get down in the dirt with us rather than rule from some distant high. Like, this is literally Aragon, the one true king, versus Denethor, the corrupt steward. Like, it's that, or it's King Arthur, or it's Charlemagne and his myth cycle. Like, this is... I don't really like the Jungian approach to things because I think the Jungian approach to things oversimplifies storytelling to a stupid degree. But as I said earlier, there's some level of this that's probably baked into our evolutionary psychology at some level. That's why we respect the king who is willing to put his neck below the sword of Damocles. The king who supports the idea of noblesse oblige, the obligations of the nobility. That's the difference between a good and a bad king, both mythically and historically. The bad king says, I have the power, therefore fuck all of you. The good king acknowledges that a king owes his people something in return for their trust and faith in him. That is, noblesse oblige. And yes, it might be shock horror transactional, because apparently we live in a world where transactional is a 4-letter goddamn word now. But do you see how a transaction is still better than slavery? How giving something back to the people that you asked to support you is a more meaningful arrangement than giving them nothing and having all the power and all the clout and all the pomp and circumstance regardless? How Denethor is a worse king than Aragon, for example?
Yeah. And that's the reason why Theoden, king of Rohan, when he died after leading his men into battle nobly, like when he was dying, he said, "I now go to meet my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall now not feel ashamed," because he knew that being a king, being
He
that
had earned it.
he had earned the respect of his people, and he had earned the respect of his forebears by leading his men into this battle, desperate though it was. you know, and he was a great and worthy king of Rohan.
I have done something meaningful that puts me on the same level as people who are worthwhile. And yet, Bill Maher does not understand the appeal of that. And again, it's down to the gerontocracy, it's down to the post-war consensus that needs to fucking die, and it's down to the blind faith in normative institutions for their own sake. Dev. I'm sorry. Every time I even use the phrase normative institutions, I have to rub it into Short Fat Otaku's face, because he is so fucking normative institution biased that it flummoxes me. Even though he knows about the competency crisis, even though he knows about the gerontocracy, even though he knows about the ideological corruption, he still would rather a normative institution be held up regardless than ever deal with the idea that populist on the ground support can be valid.
All right.
And that's what people see with Donald Trump standing up and saying, fight, fight, fight. He may be running headfirst into danger, but he's doing it to inspire you. He's doing it to say, I will not back down. And heavens, when he returned to Butler, PA, he goes, as I was saying, epic. Now, here we go.
Just never shuts up, under 2 pounds of bronzer.
Yep.
And always complaining and whining. Why do you see this as an epitome of masculinity, and is it good if it is?
I think that the gender issue that Democrats have is much broader than Donald Trump specifically. I mean, Trump also, there's the narrative, he's a billionaire who's married to a supermodel, who's become president on the first try, who, I mean, look, people can say whatever they want about it, but there is that component of an alpha male who's ultra successful and is probably about to become leader of the free world again. But to the issue of where Democrats are on this, I mean, I don't think you would be able to get many Democrats, elected Democrats, for example, to come on, I don't know if any of them honestly would, to come on this show and say, I don't think that a 18-year-old who identifies as a woman should be able to play on a girls' team. I don't think that's a problem. Or they do think it's a problem, rather. They think that, they won't say that they view that as an issue. And so when you talk about the gender identity cult that the Democrat Party has embraced, and then you're like, why don't we have more people that are pro-masculinity on the Republican side? There's also all these total charlatans going around who basically hate men and are always talking about toxic masculinity, and it's a Democrat reality. And really, the truth is there are very few efforts that are made, I would say more broadly in politics, right and left, but definitely on the right, to speak to men who are in a difficult position right now. You know, female earning.
He mixes up his words a lot.
Yeah, obviously correct though, because again, whether it's politics or whether it's fandom or whether it's products, you can't constantly beat the drum of we don't want you, you're immoral, get the fuck out, and then be surprised when people internalize that information and go, well, I guess you won't be needing us anymore. Have a nice life. Oh, wait, no, it crashed and burned because those are the very same people who you should be getting on board because they're your core audience base, who are invested in the IP, the product, the like intellectual tradition behind things, etc.
So it's getting late. It's 7 o'clock. Do you want to wrap things up now?
Yeah, we probably should.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to this election primarily because I believe that Donald Trump is going to win again, and um, whether or not he wins, I'm going to take the day off on Wednesday because if he wins, I'll be drinking to celebrate, and if he loses, I'll be drinking to cope with the inevitable destruction of the United States of America.
Yeah, and again, I just want to point this out. Everyone knows, as I've repeated many times, that I'm a left-wing person. But, as I alluded to in this episode, as far as I'm concerned, the choices are a soulless, neoliberal establishment shill who actively hates me, hates people, and hates populism, or someone who is right-wing, but is at least libertarian adjacent and populist adjacent. And the man who, after getting shot, basically made a fucking pep rally out of his fans and fucking put his fist in the air behind the symbol of the country he loves, and honestly, that shot will go down in history. Whether we win or lose, that shot should go down in history because it has a kind of mythic weight behind it that can't be denied. And I think anyone who does try to deny it is only trying to deny it because they are normative institutionalists or because they believe the establishment can do no wrong. And I don't support either of those premises. So if I vote, I will probably vote for Trump. I may not vote, period, but one, everyone who wants Trump to win should vote. Do not let yourself become blackpilled because the first place people win is in hearts and minds. If you let them convince you there's no point in fighting, that will keep you on your knees while they roll over you. If you say, like Trump said, I may go down, but I'm fucking going down fighting, then we're more likely to win than not. Or at least more likely than we would be if all the black pill people go, well, there's no point in fighting, it's automatically rigged, so I'm not even going to try. That's how they win. They win by convincing you they've already won. They lose when you realize that there's still a victory to be won.
All right, everybody. I've been Mr. E.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we have been the Duality of Man. Cheers, guys. We will hopefully see you shortly after a Trump administration is reinstated.
Hopefully.